There we go. All right. So for this afternoon, we'll talk about starting the project. And as you can see, some of the things we've covered already. And this is going to be pretty much the theme for the next, what are we now? For the next 7 more weeks, where things start to show up again. And you're like, oh, I know that. Oh, we talked about that. And hopefully at the end of the 10 weeks, you're at 85 to 90% really comfortable with all of the concepts here and how it fits in to your project management practice. So, all right. So determine the appropriate methodology. So one of the things to remember is that there is no one way that's better than the other. And this applies a lot with the different concepts, whether it's a methodology, whether it's a resource, whether it's a framework. There's no one thing that's inherently better than the other. It all depends upon the use case, right? It all depends upon how you use it, what problem you're trying to solve, and what resource you need for a specific situation. So the same thing goes with the different methodologies. So we'll go over different deliverables today and also different tools. What I want you guys to do is, first of all, let's just go through survey. So does anyone know what a survey is? Survey says, anyone watch Family Feud? Steve
Oh,
Harvey?
Yeah. They're
yeah.
asking for a survey.
Well, Richard Dawson, that's how old I am.
Survey says, so what's a survey in your own words?
Feedback to improve.
Feedback, yep,
Yeah,
from a specific group of people, right? So
Yeah.
it could be to a wide audience, just general population, or it could be very specific, right? You have filters or parameters as to who you're surveying. Now, I want you guys to, if you're writing things down, I want you to write 3 things and we'll go over each one. The first one is the project business case or needs document. Alicia, please don't write. Let's just continue to watch the road. For those of you not driving, write this down. The first one is the project business case, also known as the needs document. The second one is the project overview statement. And the third one is the project charter. So let me know once you have that down. Lisette, I can see half of your face.
What was the third
Are
one?
you done? The third one is the project charter.
Project Trevor, thank you.
All right, so project business case, project overview statement, and project charter. And the reason I want you to write this down is because they're just very related, but they're different documents. And for the test, I want you to be very clear as to the difference between the 3 documents. Okay.
Sorry,
So for the first one, oh, go
my
ahead.
internet was in and out. It was spotty.
Oh,
I
no
did-
worries, Cinderella.
I didn't know what these 3 are. You said there was
Yeah. So these are 3 different documents
Huh?
that are very similar, but they're not the same. So
Okay.
before we move forward, I want to make sure that you guys know the difference between all 3, so that when it shows up on the test, you know which one to select. Ready?
Okay.
Okay. So the first one is the project business case. This
Okay.
document explains why we need to do this. Another term for it is the needs document, right? So this explains why we need to do this. Are we either solving a problem or we're creating an enhancement, right? Either we're going from bad to good, or we're going from good to better. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
The audience for the project business case are usually executives and approvers, right? So you're making a case to someone that can approve this. So that's the project business case. So it tells you why we're doing it, and it's presented to the project approver. All good?
Mhm.
All right. The next one is, what did I say the next one was? Was it project overview?
Project bus,
Okay.
yeah, project business case.
Okay. So the project overview statement, this provides the high level document that doesn't go into the technical aspect, but think of it as your one pager. This is your like an executive summary. It's very high level, and it's the purpose of this is more informational. And the audience for this is all stakeholders. So these are people that are directly or indirectly affected by the project, but think of it as your public service announcement. This is high level, informational, just to let people know. And the last one, the project charter. So the project charter, what did I say this morning? 2 words you have to remember about charter.
Authorizer.
It
Authorize.
authorizes, absolutely, and the second is high level. So it authorizes the project manager to start, and it provides high level details of the scope, timelines, budget, uh, stakeholders, resources, so on and so forth. The purpose of the project charter is, well, to authorize, right? To authorize the project manager to start. The focus, the audience of the charter is the project team. The project team and also the project sponsor. These are the folks that are going to be looking at this closer than any other stakeholder. So, all right, let's make sure that you guys got that. So I'm going to give the definition, and you guys give me what document I'm talking about. Okay, ready? Okay, so let's do this. Let's go with Jasmine Rohano.
Yes.
Jasmine, this is, we'll do it Jeopardy style. This is the document that authorizes the project manager to start the project.
What is the project charter?
That is project charter. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Kelly Landavera. This is a public service announcement document that informs the general public about the project.
The project overview statement.
Project overview statement. And lastly, Elicio. This is the document that you would present to the project executives or project approver for this project to, well, be greenlit or approved.
I'll take curtain number 2. Oh, wrong way. What is the project business case or needs document?
That's exactly right. Project business case. So, is everyone clear as to the difference between those 3 documents?
Yeah.
Awesome. Good. You'll definitely get a question about one of those. So I'm happy that that's clear. And project implementation plan, this is a document that has your schedule, the task, who's assigned to, and also, any notes about those individual tasks. Think of it more as your the MS project type, Agile practice guidelines, we talked about that earlier. Expert judgment, you guys remember the definition of expert judgment? Or expert or subject matter expert? This is the resource that's closest to the
The people that
The
do
work.
the work.
closest to the work, So this is the one that's closest to the work. Remember the example of the EVS story I had about the slippery floors, and the subject matter experts, well, were the EVS staff, not the manager. Meetings, pretty straightforward. Focus groups. What do you think is the difference between focus groups and surveys? Let's go with Frank G. What comes to mind when you hear the word focus groups? Frank, you on? Must have stepped away. Let's go with Richard.
Focus groups, I would say, are a physical group or gathering promoting interaction, versus a survey is like typically out to one person and one person's opinion.
So you got the first part correct. So focus group is when you gather, folks, you gather people either from a specific demographic or group or a cross section, right? But what matters is you are wanting them to give their opinion on something that is very narrow, right? Hence focus. So let's say that you're trying out a new brand of toothpaste, right? So the focus group will be giving you feedback solely on, the toothpaste in front of them, right? So it's a very, very narrow topic that's in front of them that you want them to provide feedback on. Surveys, on the other hand, are more extensive, and the population that you're hitting is typically way larger. For focus groups, you typically want that to be smaller and get more information, versus surveys is typically sent out to more people, but you're getting less information because you've all received surveys, and if you see that the survey is multi-pages, do you even begin to answer, or you just move on to the next email?
Move on.
Move
to
on,
the next
definitely.
email.
Yes.
I try, and then I'm like, wait, page 2 of what?
Yep.
Well, exactly. So surveys, you send it out to a lot of people, but shorter questions. Focus group, you send it out to a small number of people, but you can go with way more questions. So, all right. Workshops. What do you think of when you hear the word workshops? Let's go with Devendra Kumar. When you hear the word workshop, must have stepped away. Edward Connolly. What comes to mind when you hear the word workshop?
It's like a working session, so it's a group of folks collaborating, but they're actively working and sharing ideas.
Right. So workshop is very dynamic. The people attending are not just receiving information, they are participating, they are creating, and there's usually a deliverable for a workshop, right? At the end of the workshop, we're going to come up with a new slogan or a new logo, or it could also be educational. At the end of this workshop, you're going to learn how to defend your opinions better, or how to de-escalate, right? High stakes, crucial conversations. So there's usually a clear deliverable for a workshop, and it's also very dynamic versus static. SMART objectives. So each letter stands for a word. So Jeffrey, so can you take a crack at what SMART objectives mean? SMART.
Oh man, I know generally what it is, but I can't remember all the acronyms. I don't know what S is. M is measurable.
Okay. Go for it.
Rare any of the other letters.
All right.
But generally,
call a friend. Pick someone in the audience.
oh, nice. I know who I'm gonna pick on is my buddy Pete.
Is Pete on?
I was trying to, yeah, I'm here, and I was trying to help Jeff cheat on the side. I have no clue. I was giving Jeff that information. I thought A was for actionable. I don't know if that's true.
Achievable
Oh,
or
close.
attainable. Yeah. Close. All right. You're close. Let's see. Let's just share the love. Elicio. So SMART. I think we got A for achievable. M, I think you got that one right. Measurable. Jeffrey, was that the one you said?
Yeah, I said measurable.
Okay, so we still have S, R, and T. So Alicio.
Can I buy a vowel?
It's already there. Smart. Hey.
Returnable, recyclable, trainable,
I love how you throw in recyclable. These are recyclable objectives. It pertains to objectives.
reportable.
No. Okay. Now call a friend. Take someone else in the group.
Oh, Frank.
Yeah, I think, let's see. Frank, are you back?
I think Nick put it in the chat.
Yeah, I'm
already.
here, but I'm actually driving.
Oh, no
Yeah,
worries,
put it
Frank.
in the chat.
So,
I'm listening in.
Nick
So,
spoiled.
Oh, it's in the chat.
I want to throw it in the chat.
S is
all right.
specific.
Yes. So thank you, Nick. So S is specific, meaning it can't be an ambiguous objective. M is measurable. AI Ben, what does measurable mean? When you say it's a measurable objective.
Something that you could track.
You can
Something you
quantify
can
it.
track. You
Yeah,
can
track.
quantify. So if I say I am going for a long run today, is that measurable?
No.
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 What if
No.
I say I'm going for a 3-mile run?
Then we
Yes.
can measure it.
Yeah, you're measuring it
Yes.
how many miles you are.
That's right. And achievable, remember we talked about this earlier with our sprints. What does achievable mean?
Something you
Not-
can accomplish in a
Not
short amount of time.
optimistic.
Realistically that you could accomplish.
Something you can achieve.
Something
Doable
you can
something
achieve within the constraints that you have. And what are the typical constraints in a project?
like a time, the
Time is
specific time,
one. Yep.
like
Costs.
Give me another
Money.
constraint.
Budget.
Money, absolutely.
Oh.
Time, money, and give me another constraint.
Resource.
Resource. There we go. So an achievable objective is something that you can attain with the time, money, and resources at your disposal. Awesome. Almost there. Relevant. What does relevant mean?
That it should align with your like value and goal objective. Like it should all align.
being in the like a related subject, something that we are talking, that we need to be relevant to that, not out of it.
Yes. Remember earlier we talked about the project that you're doing you should be able to understand the context of it. Remember that in the beginning of the class? And the context is how it relates to your department's objectives and how the department's objectives relate to the organizational's objectives. So that's how you find relevance. So for UCLA, let's say that Nick wants to investigate what would be the next blockbuster ice cream flavor. I'm all for that project, but is that relevant?
No.
How about if Nick was doing it for Ben and Jerry's?
It'd be perfect.
It'd be perfect. So relevance is conditional. It
Right.
changes depending upon the
The
stakeholder.
subject, yes.
Yep. So no project in and of itself is relevant. It depends on, well, who you're doing it for. So, and the last one is, what's the last one in our SMART objectives? What's the last T?
Time bound.
Time bound. So if your goal is to lose weight, period, is that a SMART objective?
No.
No. No.
You need to have time bound. So okay. Cinderella, help me out. I want to lose weight. Help me make that a SMART objective.
So Ian wants to lose 2 pounds every month.
Oh, you're so sweet. Oh, cool. Oh, I thought it was 2 pounds, period. I'm like, good Lord. That is so generous. Thank you, thank you. Sorry for interrupting. I got excited there. Yeah. 2 pounds every month. Oh, good God. For the next 20 years.
Yep, I was just gonna say that for the next year to achieve his 20-pound total weight loss.
There you go. So it was specific, it was measurable, achievable. What do you guys think?
Yeah.
2 pounds a month? That's
2 pounds a
achievable.
month. Yeah.
That's
God, I
healthy.
hope.
Easy. You got this, Ian.
Okay.
You can drop 2 pounds.
And you tied it into the overall goal of 20 pounds. It's relevant. And did you provide a time frame?
Yes, I said
What?
over the next year, so 12 months.
The next year. There you go. So now just the overall, I need to lose weight, turned into a SMART objective with Cinderella's help. So, all right. Jennifer, Eng, don't look at the notes. What are SMART objectives? Go through each letter for me.
Big, measurable, achievable,
Okay.
relevant,
Yep.
and time bound.
There you go. Ding, 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 ding. Daily double. Thanks so much, Jennifer. Nailed it. Knowledge of classic PM. That's what we're going through now in Agile practice. And project integration. This is where, remember we looked at earlier, from initiation to planning to execution, monitoring control, and closure. All right. Cool. Look at that. We're ahead. So business case, right? So this what is, okay, so you guys tell me now, since you're ahead of the class.
It explains why we need to do
What is
this.
business case
Oh,
again?
it explains the why. The why are we doing this? Are we solving something or enhancing something?
And who are we presenting this to?
Executives and approvers.
Yes, absolutely right. So that's correct. Any questions with business case? That's good. All right. Implementation plan. Again, we talked about this as your task, the duration, who's working on it, what the deliverables are, right? That's your implementation plan. Oh, here's a new topic. Progressive elaboration. We haven't talked about this yet. So, has anyone heard about this progressive elaboration? Not yet? Okay. So let me give an example. So let's say that I'm planning a vacation with the family. And as of right now, the only thing that I'm sharing with my family is that we're going to Korea next summer, right? It's far enough away. That's the only detail that I have. As we get closer, now I'm sharing with the wife that, hey, so I know we talked about summer. So actually looking at the last 2 weeks of June, right? And as we get closer, I'm like, oh, we have the hotel room, right? So I'm booking it with Marriott. I have gold status with Marriott. And as we get closer, now I'm telling the folks like, hey, we're gonna be on Korea Air, right? And now as we get closer, I'm telling them, hey, our departure time is at 7 in the morning. So probably need to start leaving the house around, I don't know, 3:30. So as you can see, as we get closer to the event, in this case, the trip to Korea, as we get closer to that, we're adding more information. Does that make sense? So progressive elaboration is this iterative process wherein we provide more information the closer we get to that particular timeline or milestone.
Sounds like bread
So sounds like what?
breadcrumbing. You just give little.
Breadcrumbs. Yeah. And the reason for this is you typically don't have all the information all at once, right? So Sweta, when did you first decide you're going to Italy?
Last summer.
Last summer. When you
Yeah.
decided that, did you know the hotel, the
No,
flights? No,
I just
right?
heard
But
from my friend. Yeah, no.
right? But at that point in time, that was enough, right?
Yes.
That was enough to know we're gonna go. And as you
Yeah.
got closer, you started to get more details and you started to
Right.
share that with the team. And you actually asked for input from the class, remember? Where to
Correct.
go, favorite restaurants. And
Yeah.
so that is truly an example of progressive elaboration. As you know more, you share more. That is it.
Okay, but how does that work in a project?
So
I mean,
for
I
the
get
project, yes. So let's go back to our patient portal example, right? So let's say that we're talking to our development team. And as of today, I just got word that we are approved. I presented the business case, right? Let's say I presented it to the executive team and we got approved to do a patient portal and it'll be the next fiscal year. And right now we got approved for, let's say $10 million. So We have the project name, we have high level, what it's going to be used for. What else do we have? The amount, right? Got approved for 10 million, right? And then we also know that it's, we don't have the duration yet, but we know it's going to start in fiscal year 2026. So is that enough information to start putting things together? It is, right? You can use that.
Okay.
So let's say
Okay.
Chris is part of my development team. Chris, good news, man. That patient portal thing that I've been talking about for the past 3 months is now approved. And Chris like, awesome. When do we start? And then I'll tell Chris, I'm not sure, but not this fiscal year. It's approved for next fiscal year. So now Chris has an idea that's going to be earliest would be July 1st, right? And latest would be June 30th of the next fiscal year. So we know it's somewhere there. So now we have to talk to, well, other stakeholders and other people that we need for this project. And then let's say I talk to Lisette. I need a integration person for Epic. And Lisette says, oh man, we're doing this huge upgrade, Ian. I'm sorry, but my integration person won't be available till August of 2026. So like, oh man, okay. Well, definitely need that integration person. So Chris is now just going around trying to figure out, who all can help with this project. And as Chris knows more about the availabilities, knows more about the different constraints, what, huge projects UCLA is embarking on, then he can start, working on his tentative timeline. Does that make sense? So now you went from cool idea, let's do patient portal, to we know it's next fiscal year, to oh man, we don't have Lisette till August. So all right, so it's not going to start before that. So I just start learning more, talking to people, then you start to share more with the folks. So you don't need to know everything up front, which is great. But as you know more, you share more. So that is progressive elaboration.
Okay.
Awesome. And rolling wave planning is related to progressive elaboration in a way that as you get closer to the milestone, the timeline. So let's say now it's we're about 2 months out before kicking this thing off. At that point, we should be able to call out what are all the milestones for this project. And we might have all the tasks for the first milestone, right? But we might not have everything fleshed out for, let's say, go live prep. And that's fine, right? We're 8 months away from that. We don't need to know that now. We just need to know that at some point we need to start planning for go live, or at some point we need to start putting together test scripts. At some point we need to start putting a training plans and all of that. So as you get closer to these different milestones, then you add more tasks to it. Then you can assign people and make it more granular. And if you're using Agile, remember we talked this morning about sprint planning, right? So now we can look at, all right, guys, what are we going to accomplish in the next 2 weeks, right? Then you get really granular when you get to that point. So very similar concepts. So rolling wave is used primarily in Agile, but it's also used in waterfall or predictive. Because again, as you get closer to different milestones, you get more information. And here's a term I want you guys to write down: decompose. And it's not what you think. It means not going bad, but it means breaking things down. So you go from A big task, let's say from this morning, creating a patient scheduling module, to breaking that down to, adding the different locations, to adding the different providers, to the ability to create new appointments, cancel appointments, edit appointments. So you break it down, or in PMI's words, decompose the task into smaller tasks, right? So big tasks into smaller tasks. Now, last week we talked about work breakdown, and we talked about the 880 rule. Does anyone remember what the 880 rule means?
Yes. 1 day or 2 weeks, or 8
And
hours, 40 hours. Oh no, 80 hours. Yeah. So yes.
so a task should be
No less than 8 hours, or no more than
and
2 weeks, or no more
2
than 2
weeks.
weeks.
Perfect. Did everyone get that? Okay, so that's the 880 rule. So no task less than 8 hours and no task more than 2 weeks. Perfect. And was that Kenny? Was that you?
That was Kenny.
Kenny, awesome. Good job.
That's the one thing I remember.
All right, so I won't call on you for the rest of the class then.
Right.
Awesome. So, okay, moving on to project methodologies. So we've been talking about Agile pretty much the entire day. So that hopefully is very familiar. So this is when the teams work collaboratively, and the goal is to provide value in small increments. Predictive, this is your waterfall. This is where we plan everything out, and then we move into execution, and then monitor and control, and then closure. It's very predictive in a sense that everything is planned out as much as you can ahead of time. And the hybrid is when you combine a little bit of the two, right? So you can have a waterfall type project, but in the middle. So let's say that, going back to our patient portal. So we can approach it waterfall in terms of, we're going to start with the login, followed by the appointment scheduling, followed by the lab, and followed by secure messaging, right? So that's our sequence. So when you think of waterfall, it goes up, down, 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 right? So login, appointments, and then lab, and then secure messaging, right? But within that, we can have some agile methodologies. So as we're doing the login, we can do some sprints, right? So say 2 weeks, we're gonna make sure that we finish up the patient login. So that's one sprint. But when we get to the lab works, then appointments. So maybe that takes us maybe 6 sprints, right? So we're still following the succession that we talked about, right? Login, scheduling, lab, so on and so forth. But within that specific area of, let's say, the appointments, we're approaching it using agile methodology. Does that make sense? So that's how you can have a hybrid approach. And a lot of projects are hybrid in so many ways. Rarely is a project just 100% agile or 100% waterfall. And as you can see here, the goal is to have incremental value, and the process is very iterative, and it adapts to, what are the findings. So agile is very adaptive, because as you learn more, you try to adapt to your findings. So predictive, is, again, waterfall, traditional, right? Determine scope, timeline, cost early on, and then you go into execution. That's predictive. So traditional waterfall. Adaptive, we talked about this. This is more of your agile, it's very dynamic. And as you learn more, you adapt, you change, you get feedback, frequent and often. And hybrid is when you start to combine the different methodologies. Again, you have, from a high level, you have your waterfall or traditional. And within that, and here's a good example, you have the different agile iterations. All right. So let me ask you this. What are the downfalls you think of doing agile? What are some of the things that might go wrong? Any thoughts?
I think sometimes time can be an issue. Like if
Okay.
people on the project team have other responsibilities within their job, it's hard to
Okay.
do the sprints.
Very true. What's another one?
Another one is at first you'll just deliver a minimum viable product, which means at first you'll just get something that just meets the requirements that the customer has
Right.
versus delivering everything that the customer wants all at once.
That's true. And another one is you can get into iteration purgatory, where you're stuck in this loop of just, all right, we're in iteration number 43. At some point, you have to move on. So you need to have a very good definition of done. Right? At what point do we call this done? At what point can we deliver this to the customer? Mark Zuckerberg had a saying, if you're not a little bit embarrassed of the product when you deliver it, then you've overdone your iteration. So it is expected to be, close to, but not 100%. And that's why you see this when either Apple or Android, they have, the big update, right? Let's say, I don't know what the update is now, iOS 23. What happens within the first 2 weeks of iOS 23 coming out?
iOS 23.01.
Exactly. 0.01 dot, 02. Immediately after it's released, people use it and then they go, oh man. And then, okay, that's fine. 2 weeks is actually pretty generous. Usually it's like in the first 48 hours, there's a new update. Like, I just downloaded this. And that's because it's good enough, it's close enough, roll it out, let the customers find. We'll just create that fix for it. So that is an example of getting it done enough, and then you iterate on it. Sometimes this becomes a scary game, and you've seen this with Tesla, wherein they release it too soon and people get hurt, like with the full self-driving, and now they have, in parentheses, supervised, right? Because at first they said full self-driving, and people took it literally. Like, get in the car, put in destination, fall asleep, and people got hurt. Some people, died. And so, depending on the software that you're working with, you want to be very clear as to the scope and the limitation of that update so that you can iterate on it as long as people know what to expect. So now Tesla clearly has the word supervise on there to let people know that no, you cannot go to sleep. No, you can't be reading a newspaper. You still have to look at the road and you still have to be ready to intervene if needed. So these are the different use cases. So for Agile, talked about software. For predictive, we talked about this with Mike, the construction. Iterative, this is where you are constantly, updating and upgrading things. Incremental, this is where we talked about earlier, the patient portal, where you started out with the login, then the appointments. So you're providing value in bits and pieces. And hybrid is when you mix and match different types of methodologies. All right. We'll go ahead and skip this one. The example that we've been using is the patient portal, and we'll stick with that for today. At this point, let me see here. So for predictive, again, construction is a perfect example because, as you know, you can't you build a building from the ground up. You can't skip a floor. Neither can you just decide like, oh, maybe we'll get back to floor number 5. It's okay. No, it has to be very systematic. The same thing with medical equipment installation. You a lot of times you have to tear down a wall to get the equipment in, like an MRI or CT, depending on where it is. And so there's very, very prescriptive steps that you have to do when you're doing these type of projects. Iterative would be like a medical device development, or Epic, for example, all of the dashboards, all of the templates where you're constantly making changes. Incremental, this would be the example we talked about for the patient portal. And it could also be, does anyone live in Orange County area? Anyone? No one? So UCI is currently building out their new hospital in Irvine, and it is it's waterfall, of course, but in terms of rollout, it's very incremental. So they have some of the doctor's offices open in some of the floors, but other floors are still closed. So as they get a floor ready, they open up that floor to the different patients. So it's a very good use of time. So even before the entire building is done, they're already seeing patients. So that's a good example of incremental, right, rollout. Hybrid would be, well, actually, that would be, so the construction is waterfall, but the opening up of the physician's offices is incremental. Right. Okay, so that was waterfall, agile, and hybrid. As you can see, one is not better than the other. It's about the use case, and it's about which one works best for the project that you're working on. All right. So now let's dive into plan and manage the scope. Here we're going to talk about, let's see what we haven't done here yet. So requirements documentation, this is, well, a document that has all of your requirements. And in Agile, what is that called? The document that has your requirements, your features, what do we call that?
Product overview statement. Oh no.
Product backlog.
Product backlog, yeah.
Yes.
Product backlog, yep. So everything that needs to be done, and the product backlog is driven by two words, U and S. What drives product backlog?
User
User
story.
story.
User stories. Yep, you got it. Work performance reports. This is, how you're doing, your actuals versus your planned, right? And any variation. That's your work performance reports. Requirements traceability matrix. Okay, so write this one down, as this will more likely than not show up on the test. So requirements traceability matrix is a document that captures who made the request for this requirement. So let's say that Carol works in facilities, and Carol mentioned, you're all working on that patient portal thing. It might be great to put a wayfinding feature so that folks can actually find where the CT area is or where the labs are. So one of the complaints that we've been having is that when there's construction going on, patients don't know about it till they get there. So they either have to park somewhere else. So it'd be nice to have near real-time wayfinding feature in your patient portal. So in this requirements traceability matrix, you'll have requester, Carol, department, facilities, and the request, right? The description. So you'll put, all of the wayfinding stuff, and you'll have the justification. And then after that, you'll have, well, approved or not, right? And these requests you will review with your team, get it approved. And whether it's approved or not, you have to, and this is the part for the test, whether the requirement is approved or not, the project manager or designee needs to inform Carol of the outcome. So whether it's approved or not, PM or designee needs to circle back with Carol and say, hey, Carol, thanks for your suggestion. For phase one, we're not going to include wayfinding, but we did add it as an item for phase two. Does that make sense? And this is something that in real life, we all can do a better job of, right? How many times has someone come up to you and put in a request, hey, Lizette, it might be nice if, and then that request either isn't captured, or if it is captured, if it's not approved, we don't circle back with, let's say, Cinderella, who made the request 3 months ago. So very important that you capture who made the request, and then you circle back with the decision. All right. So scope management plan. So this is a component, right, of our project management plan. And this describes, okay, so for the test, it can be tricky sometimes to figure out what the actual document is used for. And scope management plan is one of them. So we'll go through this. And once you guys get it, then it's a copy paste for the risk management plan and so on and so forth. So scope management plan is a document that describes how the scope will be defined, developed, monitored, controlled, validated. It tells you the how. How are we going to deal with the scope of the project? What it does not do is tell you what's in scope. So scope management plan tells you how we're going to approach it. So in this document, it will say, in order for us to have a comprehensive scope for this project, we will be reaching out to different stakeholders in radiology, labs, so on and so forth. And after we've gathered the requirements and requests from the different departments, we will have a meeting to present that to our internal team to figure out what's feasible. And once we have our findings, we'll present it to our executive team, who will then approve of what's in scope or out of scope for our phases. If there are requests that come up along the way, we will submit it to a change control board that will then review the request and figure out if this is something that we need to incorporate in this current phase. That is a scope management plan. There's nothing in that document that tells you specifically what's in scope or out of scope. It just tells you how we're going to approach the scope of the project. Does that make sense? So how are we going to approach it? Now, the actual scope of the project will be, the high level scope will be in your project charter. It will also be in your project overview. But the how are we going to deal with scope? How are we going to deal with requests about the scope? That's all in your scope management plan. So it's the same thing with your risk management plan. How are we going to go about and capturing the risk? How are we going to go about and figuring out how to mitigate it? How do we assign risk? What risk should we escalate to leadership? What risk should we just keep within the project team level? That's your risk management plan. Now, the actual risk won't be in that document. The actual risk will be in what's called a risk register. Does that make sense? So you're going to see this come up over and over again. So blank management plan will tell you how to approach, be it the scope, be it the risk, be it, let's see, quality. But the actual parameters, the actual risk, the actual test will not be in that document. It just tells you how are we going to approach it. So here's an example, right? So what is the work breakdown structure? How many levels are we going to use for a work breakdown structure? Are we going to use a work breakdown structure dictionary? The dictionary, by the way, just adds the ID to each task. So like 1.1.1, that's an initiation. How we're going to do scope baseline maintenance. How we're going to define, accepted deliverables, so on and so forth. Notice how the actual, in this case, the actual scope, the actual tasks are not in this document. Does that make sense? Think of this as just your how to approach scope management, but not the actual scope. All right, so tools and techniques, obviously need expert judgment to figure out what makes sense. Alternatives analysis, this looks at what are the different options for the things that are in scope. One example of alternative analysis is build or buy, right? So let's say that, oh, this is an easy one. We're updating our radiology department and we need a new MRI. So there are two ways that you can approach that. One is to build, one is to buy. Well, building an MRI is obviously not in the skill set of UCLA. So the obvious choice is to buy, right? Now, let's say that we're updating the radiology dashboards, for example. Is that something that we can do, or is that something that we should outsource, right? So if it's within our skill set, then we can build it in-house. We don't need to get outside support for it. So alternative analysis is just what are our options to approach the scope? Build or buy is one of them. Internal versus external resource is another one. So that's your alternative analysis. Meetings, we all know what that is.
Ian,
Right.
can I ask a question? So,
of course.
So for the scope management plan, I don't
Yep.
think I've ever seen one before actually implemented at an organization. So I'm just curious, would this generally be maybe for a type of project, you'd have a scope management plan and you end up like for every project within that type of project, you end up using that same scope management plan? Like server upgrades. Every time
Yep.
we do a server upgrade, we'll probably use this scope management plan.
That is a great use case for this. You just have to review and see if you need to make some updates. For example, under scope change requests, right? You route it through a change control board, and that particular change control board, like for example, for UPlan, we have a weekly meeting with the different admins, right? And you can include that in your scope management plan, that there's a change in scope, that it's routed to change control board, which in this case would be our UPlan admins, which meets every Wednesday. So for a different project, that could be, that change control board could be a different set of people.
Right. Sure.
Yeah. So but you can definitely use this as a jumping off board.
Got it. Okay. All
Yep.
right. Thanks.
Cool. And I'll pull in Mike here real quick. Mike, the admin group that meets every week, I think that was one of the best things that we've implemented across the UCs in terms of UPlan, because there's so much knowledge sharing in terms of what the other admins are seeing from their campuses. And it's almost like having a time machine, because different campuses are doing different things. And so they're coming back with information from the quote unquote future to let you know, like, hey, we tried to do this part of it, like forecasting, and this is what we've learned. So it's an amazing way of knowledge sharing and looking at how your request may or may not be as useful as you think it is. And we've had a few of those, and I'll let Mike tell the story about how Aditya, he's our senior architect, that just tells you flat out, yeah, that's a dumb idea.
He does, and he does that to me frequently. So, I don't know. Yeah, thank you, Ian. I don't know that I can add much more to what you just said, but what you said is correct. So we meet with the other admins that have UPlan deployed at their campuses and the different departments every Wednesday. It's an hour plus meeting. We call it basically change control, but it's change control and information share. So change control is each campus has things that they're trying to implement. So they review it with the other admins to make sure they're not stepping on somebody with what they're trying to do. And then we schedule for it to be moved into production. But before they do that, they review the changes often the week before. And in those review sessions, they ask what actually has been done in other campuses. Has anyone done what they're trying to do? So what are the lessons learned? What worked? What didn't work? How was adoption? How could it have been done better? And when other campuses are interested, we get to share the development. So as an example, for our annual capital process, we completely encapsulate our capital planning in UPlan, from the request to the governance approval to the actual funding to the budget office. All of that information is done in UPlan. And we built that, but other campuses have looked at it like, oh, that's really interesting, and it works for us as well. So they take our build and they move it into their system. It is a significantly shorter development path for them. They don't have to build it from the ground up. We have a lot of the training materials. We have a lot of the tip sheets. We have some of the AppD workflows, if you're using AppD, that help support it. And we basically kind of transition it and just drop it in for them. And then they customize it as they might need for their particular shop. But instead of months of development, they have it in a week or two. So it significantly shortens the amount of time. And it works for things that they're working on that we might want as well. So it's both a process and configuration think tank or incubation tank. Somebody takes the lead on something, the rest of us watch and see how it's going to go. If it goes well, we're like, okay, let's implement it in our campus. Or if it didn't work, we get to learn why it didn't work and maybe retool it, do it again. So that sort of information share has been incredibly helpful. We each of the campuses report up to the Office of the President on a quarterly basis. All projects that are over $5 million, and we have a separate reporting for all projects over $25 million. And the report that they're asking us to do has always been a bit of an annoyance because it's completely manual and it has a lot of details that are not kept within any system. So we've taken a fair amount of time to create those data elements within UPlan for our partner campuses. And now updating it for that particular report is literally just a click of a button when it's time to report it. And it automatically prints out in the right form and format. And we ship it off to the Office of the President for all of the UCs. That has saved so much time for all the campuses. Those are the types of things that are driven out of this partnership that we have with the different campuses.
Absolutely. And we internally call this Mike's evil plan. And it has turned out to be really helpful. And it's funny because when we first started, the chancellors from other facilities are like, what? You're trying to standardize what again? Hey, we can't even agree on the menu in the cafeteria. And that was 7 years ago. And now we have come a really long way in terms of working together and standardizing as much as we can. And as Mike said, if it works in UCSF, then we try to adopt it. If it works in UCLA, then other campuses try to adopt it as well. So it has been super helpful. I did not notice the time. It is 3:11. Let's go ahead and take our 10-minute break and we'll reconvene at 3:21.
Thank you.
See you soon. Yep. All right. Welcome back, folks. Almost there, guys. Last 30 minutes. Okay. Where were we? Yes. So another thing that you have to be very familiar with for the test is the difference between project requirements and product requirements. Project and product. So for project requirements, this pertains to the task, the milestones, the resources, right? Things that you need to implement the project. Okay. Product requirements, this pertains to the actual features, capabilities, functions. What does the product do? So let's make sure that everyone is familiar with the difference. So I'm going to give a requirement and you guys tell me if this is a project requirement or a product requirement. Ready? Okay. So Pete, the color of a car.
It'd be a product.
Products. Okay. Nikki, how many months it takes to finish this car?
I'm sorry. Can you say it again?
So let me know if this is a project requirement or a product requirement. So how many, I think I said weeks, weeks it takes to finish the prototype of this car?
Project.
Project, right? Because it's timeline. Kinney, how many cylinders for this car?
That would be product.
Product. And Kyle, the resources needed to complete the prototype of this car.
Product or project?
Project. Okay, cool. All right, thank you. All right. So the high level product and project requirements, you can include that in the charter. However, you need to provide a definitive breakdown as you get into the project and product requirements, so everyone is in the know as to what you're trying to build, and also, the timelines, resources, and whatnot. And in Agile, what do we call that document that has the list of everything we need to build? Keyword.
Backlog.
Product backlog. Absolutely. All right. Another thing that you need to know for the test, the difference between project scope and product scope. So project scope, this is the work performed, the task, what we need to do, right, to deliver the product, service, or result. Whereas the product scope, this is the features and functions as it relates to the product or service. So let's say appointment reminders. Is that a project scope or product scope?
Product scope.
Product scope. Complete the API between this app and Epic.
That would be a project scope. That would be
Projects.
Yeah, project scope.
Yeah, project. Because this is the work that we need to do.
Exactly.
All right. So predictive waterfall, the project and product scope, you break it down using the work breakdown structure. And do you guys remember the process of breaking down bigger tasks into smaller tasks? Starts with the letter D.
Decompose. Yeah, decompose.
Decompose or decomposition. Yep.
Yes.
Yep. And in Agile, we just talked about this. The list of all of the requirements and user stories is what's that document called? Right here.
Backlog.
Backlog, product backlog. Yep. And so you measure the project completion. So for the project, it will be against the project management plan. And for the product, it would be against the product requirements, right? So for project plan, it would be, the different tasks completed by a certain time frame. For the product scope, it will be the features that we said that this product will have. All right, so tolerances, right? So for tolerances, there are two types of tolerance. You have your high level tolerance and low level. So think of it this way. Let's say that we're all going out for lunch, and ideally we spend, well, let's see, how many are there? There's 30 of us, so let's just say $20, so 600, right? We're going for lunch, our budget is 600, and our tolerance is 10%. So what is a 10% tolerance of 600? What's the low level and the high level of that? Can anyone do the math for me?
540 and 660.
Whoa, who was that?
Melissa?
Melissa, thank you, thank you. And can you explain to the class how you got there?
10% over and 10% under 600.
So 10% of 600 is?
60.
So the upper limit would be 600 plus 60, and that got you to?
660.
And then 600 minus 60 got you to?
540.
540. So that is your upper and lower limit for a budget of 600 and for lunch for all of us, right? Now, before I proceed, any questions in terms of the upper limit and lower limit in terms of tolerances? So you start out with your ideal, and then you look at, if your tolerance is 10%, then you add 10% minus 10%. If it's 5%, you do it accordingly. For the test, I want you to write down this word, threshold. So, Melissa.
Yes.
What is our upper threshold? For
660.
example, 660. So once you hit 661, then that means you've crossed the threshold, right? And at that point, you need to report it because, it was above the tolerances that you're permitted. So the threshold is that trigger point. At that point, you need to do something, right? In this case, obviously, lunch would be a bad example of that, but maybe it's for maybe it's for a training where we're sending everyone to training, and our budget for training is, let's say, 100,000 and 10% tolerance. So anything above that, you need to get permission to proceed, right? So threshold. So the threshold is what triggers an action. So the action is usually to ask for approval. Does that make sense? Is everyone clear between the difference of tolerance and threshold? So Lisette.
I have a question on this.
Yes.
So like, for example, we had an upper threshold and a lower threshold. And if we are needing to report for an upper threshold, if you're
Yeah.
going significantly under budget, isn't that a good thing and you don't have to report, or you would still report that it's significantly under?
So above budget, you would report for approval. Below budget, you would report for information.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
Yep. So another way to call it is upper limit. So tolerance upper limit in the example that we gave would be 660. Tolerance lower limit would be 540. All right.
Well, what would an example be of crossing the threshold from like a lower limits perspective?
So a good example would be, let's say in manufacturing, and let's say our goal is to create let's say, just say iPhones, right? So let's say that our production target is 100 iPhones per day. And we have a tolerance level of 10%. So if you get up to 110, that's good. And if you go below 10%, what would that be? So if our target was
90.
90, right? So if it's 90 to 110, you don't need to report it. That's within our tolerances. It's what you will tolerate, right? Once you start dipping below that, 89, now you have to report it. And in this case, you'd have to figure out what's going on. So you have to do an analysis as to, okay, why aren't we hitting our target? And let's say that you're able to hit that yesterday, the day before, but today you're not hitting it. So now you have to do some sort of analysis as to, is it the personnel? Let's say Pete called in sick and he's amazing at putting together the cover of the iPhone, and Lisette is covering and she's still learning how to do this. So she's slowing down the process, right? So you need to do some sort of analysis as to why you're not within your lower limit. Is that clear?
Yeah, that makes sense. I think I was still thinking about like the lunch example, so I was like, well, why would it be?
Yeah, yeah. They're happy that you didn't get dessert. Yeah, so for the lunch example, yeah, low is better. But yeah, for the lower limits, that's a concern in terms of productivity, in terms of output. Yeah,
That makes much sense.
cool. All right. Moving on to another term that we haven't encountered yet, which is EEFs, your enterprise environmental factors. Now, you might have come across this in Michelle's session, have you? EEFs, and what's the other one?
Yes. OP.
A's.
Yeah.
APA.
OPAs. Organizational. What does OPA stand for? Anyone remember?
Organizational process assets.
That's right. That's right. Was that you, Nikki?
Yes.
Hey, so Nikki, in your own words, what's the biggest difference, again, broad strokes, between EEFs and OPAs?
Is it internal and external?
So which one is more external?
The enterprise?
EEF. Yep. Yep. And how about control? Which one is more under your control? EEF or OPAs?
OPA?
OPAs, that's right. So again, these are broad strokes because there are some nuances to it, but you just need to remember, you know, high level where each item falls into. So, all right, I'm gonna throw out a factor or something that would influence the project, and you tell me if this is EEF or OPAs. You guys ready? So hold on, actually, so EEFs, let's define it first as a review for you guys. So these are conditions not under the control of the project team, right? While OPAs are typically within our control. These are plans, processes, policies, and procedures that the organization has control over or influence of. So, all right, Medicare mandates, EEFs or OPAs?
Yes.
EEFs.
EEFs, right? Construction on the 405 freeway.
Yeah. Yeah.
EEFs, absolutely. Upgrades to our Epic system.
Yeah.
OPAs, yep. Updates to our internal policies and procedures.
OPA.
OPAs, yep. We're doing a golf tournament and it rains.
EF.
EEFs, right? That's literally environment. Beyond our control. Cool. So you need to know those two things because for EEFs, you have to, for the most part, accept and adapt. While for OPAs, you have more control. So you can work on it. All right. So those are the two major influences. So EEFs, so you could break it down to internal, external. Here's an example, like the actual building, like the actual Reagan Hospital, right? That's an internal EEF. You don't really have a lot of, you know, control over that. An external one would be, you know, Medicare, HHS mandates, things of that nature. OPAs, we talked about, policies and procedures, templates. All right. Document analysis. This is a technique wherein you review, right, different documents to help you get a better understanding of project requirements. So especially if you're doing like a review of a project that was that's similar to your project and you're reading through what they did, lessons learned, things of that nature. That's your document analysis, pretty straightforward. So different project documents that you can review includes the business plans, service agreements, any marketing materials. Focus group, we talked about that earlier. This is where you gather people and ask about their thoughts, opinions about products and services, right? And so for the focus group, you have a small group, but you can ask many questions. For surveys, you typically have less questions, but you can ask a bigger group.
Does the development stage of the product depend, like, does the focus group matter on, like, actually say, does the stage of what the product is at, does that affect the focus group, or is that considered in the focus groups? Do people,
The stage where the project is
yeah,
at.
well, I guess because like in my in my instances where I had these, like the focus group was usually like when the product was kind of like almost done, and like the survey was usually done before, like to get like preemptive stuff. Does that matter, or is that just kind of like up to the project manager?
So high level, you're absolutely right. You want to do the surveys early on to get a sense of, let's say we're talking about patient portal, right? You want to understand the pain points that patients are having. And so high level, a survey would be an amazing way to get that, right? Tell us the top 3 pain points you have when booking your patient appointment or the appointment process in general, right? And from that, you can have a focus group to really dig into, okay, why is it painful to book an appointment at UCLA? And so you have the focus group go into more details. You can also use the focus group throughout the project. So remember we talked about that iterative or not iterative, the incremental delivery. So you can have a focus group kick the tires. So let's say, for example, that appointment scheduling. So you can have the focus group take a look at that and say, hey, here's what we came up with based on the feedback we got. Let us know what you think. Play with it for a week, and we'll come back, next week to get your feedback. So you can use the focus group all throughout. Surveys, you want to use it infrequently, especially if you're targeting the same group of people, because chances are, they might respond the first time, but probably not the second or third, especially if you're asking the same questions. Does that help, Victor?
Yes, thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, man. All right. Questionnaires and surveys, written format, quickly capture information from many respondents. All right. So as we talked about, varied audience, quick turnaround, and you want to make it, as short and as impactful as possible, because if it's too long, people don't respond. Benchmarking, this is where you're comparing actual and planned. And this is also benchmarking is where you compare yourself either internally within the organization or externally outside the organization. So let's say, for example, you want to look at patient throughput in the OR, right? So you can do an internal benchmark, look at how many patients you were able to see high level last year, like fiscal year 2024 versus fiscal year 2025, right? So that's an internal benchmark where you're comparing yourself to, a different time frame. An external benchmark is when you would compare our OR times with, let's say, Kaiser, right? So that would be an external benchmark. Let's take a look at how many OR rooms they have and how many people were they able to get through those OR rooms in a fiscal year. So for benchmarking, it's a comparison, right? And it could be internal and external. And the goal is to hopefully identify best practices. All right. Yep. Interviews. So you want to be able to really figure out what are the questions. For interviews, you can use more open-ended questions. For surveys, as much as possible, you want it to be very binary. So they can quickly say yes or no, good or bad. But for interviews, you can be more open-ended to allow the interviewee to share more of their own thoughts. Does that make sense? So interviews, more open-ended, surveys, more prescriptive. All right, so interviews help with requirements, goals, expectations, and also to identify, remember, the user story, right? So the user story comes from the interviews. Okay, group decision making. So voting is when you ask everyone, tell us what you think about this idea in front of us. Autocratic is when one team member makes a decision for the group. And multi-criteria is when you have, let's say, a decision matrix or some sort of ranked evaluation. So these are the different types of group decision making. And again, for the test, they're going to try to make it look like one is inherently better than the other. And that's really not the case. There's a time and place for each one of these. So voting, let's say we're all trying to figure out where to go for lunch, then, just asking the group, raise your hand. We're going to go for burgers or let's say Chinese food. That's easy. Give me an example where you think autocratic decision making makes a lot of sense. Even if it's not a project, just in general, where do you think that having one team member make the decision is a good way to go?
If everyone is indecisive.
that's
Yeah, lunch with
absolutely
a
right.
big group. Sometimes just like
Yeah,
someone picks something.
yeah, they go around the rosy, so you're like, okay, let's just pick this.
That's
Yeah.
absolutely right. Any other thoughts? I'll give you a clue. When one person is the subject matter expert. So let's say we're visiting Italy and we're in a group. And then let's say Chris lived in Italy for 5 years. So it would be easier, Chris, to tell us which restaurant to go to, which park to visit, right? Versus all of us who are novices trying to figure out, oh, I don't know, that Il Fulgato place sounds right. Can't even pronounce it. So that would be one where you have a subject matter expert in the group. Another one is when you have assigned roles. So let's say in the emergency room, when you're running a code, you usually have a team lead. So the team lead is that one person that's calling the shots, right? So you're the one saying, epi every 3 minutes, your lidocaine, whatever it is, you're the one calling the shots. During a code, you don't want to go for voting. What do you think, Chris? Should we give the patient epi? Raise your hand. That would be a really bad process. So there's a right time and place and multi-criteria. This is your rank voting. If you guys remember, let's say there are different features and features that affect cybersecurity and patient safety. Those usually have more weight to it, right? When you're looking at different features. So that's when you use the multi-criteria. All right. So last 10 minutes, guys, we can do this. Here's something that you need to remember for the test. This is pretty easy, but you need to be super clear with these terminologies. So when we're voting, if everyone agrees 100% on a single course of action, whether let's go to Disneyland or let's go to Universal Studios, if everyone says Disneyland, that is called a unanimous decision, right? 100%. Unanimous or unanimity, right? Everyone with me? 100% agree, unanimous decision, okay? Disneyland or Universal, 10 people, 6 choose Disneyland, 4 pick Universal. Where do we go?
Majority.
Majority, and majority is very easy. It's 50% plus 1, right? So that's majority. Not 100%, but still 50% plus 1. Now, let's say that there are 3 choices. Disneyland, Universal, and is SeaWorld still around? San Diego? I haven't been forever.
Yeah, it is.
Yes.
One of my colleagues just went yesterday, earlier this
I
week.
haven't been to SeaWorld in so long. So let's say 3 choices, 10 people, 3 choices. 3 people say SeaWorld, 3 people say Disneyland, and 4 people say Universal. Where do we go?
Universal.
Universal. Did we hit 50%?
No.
No, but that doesn't matter because it is the biggest block of voters. Right? Even though we didn't hit 50%, it was 3, 3, and 4. But 4 is the biggest voting block. And so we're gonna go with the 4 that picked universal, and that is called plurality or plural vote, right? So if 100% of the people decide to go one way or another, that's called what type of vote? 100%.
Unanimous.
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 50% plus 1.
Majority.
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 And the biggest voting block, under
Plurality.
50%.
Plurality.
Plurality. Good, 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 good. And do you guys remember the Roman voting?
Thumbs up, thumbs down.
And
Up, down, or
sideways.
sideways.
That's
Sideways.
right. And how about fist of 5? What does that mean?
You're rating on a thing of 5.
Right.
5
how
is
much
the best.
you
How much you like
or
it.
not. Yep, perfect. All right. Data representation. So there are different ways that you can present data, and as much as you can, try to present the same information in different ways. And the reason for that is different people digest data differently. An extreme example would be Amazon, when Jeff Bezos was still there. So Jeff Bezos had a rule, which is no PowerPoints. Have you heard of this one? So no PowerPoint. So what he would demand of anyone pitching to the executive team is that you put together a document, a Word document. And the first 15 minutes or so, everyone in the room reads this document. It's a Word document, it's sentences, it's paragraphs. Read through it, and then you discuss it. So that's an extreme example. Other organizations, are okay with PowerPoints, and most are. And so the more that you can present things different ways, through words, through diagrams, pictures, right? The better. So mind mapping. Have you guys heard of this mind map? Where you have, let me see if I have a picture. 1 second. So let me do this. I'll throw in a picture for next week for us. Because a mind map, you have one idea. Let's say vacation. So that's your circle in the middle, vacation. We're gonna plan a vacation. And then from there, you say, locations, when are we gonna do it? Who are we gonna invite? So all these different things that's related to that one idea of let's plan a vacation. But I'll throw in a visual to further highlight the point. Affinity diagram is when, okay, let's stick with vacation. And then let's say for this group, Pete, if we're gonna go on vacation with 30 people, where would you want us to go?
Canada.
Canada. All right. And is it more outdoors or indoors?
Definitely indoors.
Indoors. Sweta, vacation for our group. Where do you want us to go?
In Japan.
Japan. Is it more outdoors or indoors?
Outdoors.
Outdoors. So Pete, did you say outdoors or indoors?
I said indoors. I want to go visit Canada.
Indoors.
But
Okay,
spend
so
time.
indoors. Sweta, outdoors. Cinderella, vacation for the group.
Thailand.
Outdoors, indoors.
Outdoors.
Outdoors. Okay, one more. Kelly Ortuno, vacation for the group.
Italy.
Italy, indoor activities or outdoor activities?
Outdoors.
Outdoors. So, as you're starting to see with this example, we're getting a large group of people suggesting that we do activities indoors or outdoors.
Outdoors.
Outdoors, right? So now I think, okay, so we want to go somewhere, but it sounds like people are gravitating towards outdoor activities, right? And we have Pete for indoors. So then you can, okay, then you can stop and say, all right, seems like we want to go outdoors. So let's focus on that. Victor, outdoors, where do you want us to go?
Vancouver.
Vancouver. Okay, so now we have two Canadas, right? But now people are looking at outdoor activities. We have two Canadas. Let's do one more. Edward Connolly.
Let's go to London.
London. Indoors, outdoors.
A lot of good museums there, so maybe indoors.
Indoors. Okay. So now you start to kind of group together, you know, a lot of people want to go outdoors. There's 2 votes for Canada. So maybe we look at Outdoors Canada. Do you see where I'm going with this? So you try to look at where people are gravitating towards, and you use it as a guide to continue the conversation of, you know, planning a vacation for, well, 30 people. So let's continue. No worries, Jennifer. We'll pick this up again next week, and we did pretty good, guys. We're more than halfway through module 2, so we'll definitely finish this next week. But before we go, in our last minute, I'd love to get 3 shares from the group, either things that you've learned, things you want to share, things we can improve upon, anything. 3 shares before we adjourn.
I learned about the EEF and the OPA,
Okay, what does EEF stand for?
mostly like external, and OPA and internal.
Mostly internal. Cool. Thank you. 2
I
more.
I learned that the agile method of voting, I did not know it was thumbs up, down, sideways. So that was something different. Yeah.
And that's called what type of voting?
Agile method.
Roman. Yeah. It's under
Roman?
Agile, but that particular one is called Roman voting under Agile. And one
Roman.
more. One more shit before we go.
I learned user story.
User story. And what are the 3 components of a user story?
Role, goal, benefit.
Role, goals, and benefits. With that, thank you so much, everyone. We'll share the links and the summaries. Please enjoy the weekend, and thank you for showing up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks,
Bye, guys.
Ian.
Thank you.
Have a good weekend.
You too.
Weekend.
Everyone.
Bye.